Hey everybody, welcome to the In All Things podcast. It's time to see God in everything. Hello everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of the In All Things podcast. My name is Mitch Frost and I'm here with Pastor Steve Markle. How are you doing today?
I am doing awesome. This is a little different today.
Why?
Because it's 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And just has a different feel to it.
Usually we record in the mornings. Today, some different things got in the way. So here we are in the afternoons. We're tired. We're full because we ate lunch. Chipotle today.
Chipotle was good. Yeah.
But yeah, it feels a little bit
It
different.
does. And plus, we haven't been up here in a while.
True. We've had some different weeks. You were off last week. You
Special
didn't have to be
guest,
on
yes,
here. And then
yes.
we had the live recording.
That's right.
So yeah, it's been kind of weird.
Yeah.
But here we are. And this is the season finale.
Yes. And so we're recording earlier in November, but this is coming out the day before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So that'll be the end. And
Right,
then
of
we're
season one.
never coming back. Ever.
We'll decide later.
Just kidding. But we'll be back beginning of 2022
Yep.
with brand new ideas and episodes and even guests. We have some exciting ones that we're going to be planning out here in the near future. But today's kind of the end of an era, I guess. It's kind of like,
It's a little
like
dramatic.
I wish there was like a dramatic like reel of all our highlights of this season so far. You know, that would be pretty cool.
All of them.
All two.
Or
I'm just kidding.
blooper reel would
But
be better. Yeah.
what has been your favorite part of this so far? I think this is episode 13, technically.
Is it?
I think so.
I thought it was 12.
I think
Okay.
it's 13.
All right. well,
But anyway, what's
doesn't
been your
matter.
favorite so far?
My favorite.
Favorite moments? It can be a couple.
You know,
it's
I really enjoyed the live one
fine.
in front of the church. I really enjoyed that one. I think back to the beginning, just getting started, that was fun. That first week when we talked about all those different current events that were going on, really enjoyed that. Just getting into a groove with it, being able to, I think being able to speak to the church in the middle of the week and to all those that are listening, not just our church, but just, I really have gotten to enjoy this. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, same types of things. Doing it in front of a crowd was fun because it's just a lot easier to do it in a room full of people than up here in the attic with four of us.
Right.
But yeah, that was exciting. But I think we've definitely grown a lot. Like when we started, we both were kind of like, okay, how do we do this? What do we say? Like it was just kind of awkward at first, I feel like. Maybe you felt differently. But I feel like the first couple ones we came off of and we were like, was that anything? Was that good? Was that terrible? Was that? And then the further we went, we were like, okay, like we're actually kind of hitting a stride here and it's good.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the guests. I you know, last week even being off, I missed being in here doing that. So I think we'll enjoy the month break, but we're gonna also miss it. But I'm looking forward to next season because we're gonna dive into a lot of those questions that were being asked by the church that we didn't get to. So I'm really looking forward to
lots of good stuff coming up.
Yep.
So, but today we're going out with a bang here.
Oh,
we're
all
not
right.
gonna
Sounds good.
We're not gonna just like mosey around and that's the end. No,
No
we're gonna do it.
laziness. Nope.
So there's a lot of things happening in our world right now. So I want to talk about a couple of those things first. So first and foremost, I feel like we have to talk about the Travis Scott tragedy. So if anybody doesn't know about this, Travis Scott is a rapper. He's been around for a long time at this point, very, very, very popular. And pretty much every year he took off for COVID, as everybody did, but he puts on a big music festival called Astro World Festival. It happens in Texas. And this year was one of the biggest that they were ever going to have. And so put it on, sold it out. I don't know how many people, but insane amount of people bought tickets. And from the get-go that morning, I think the gates opened at like 9 a.m. So it was an all-day thing. And from the get-go that morning, you could kind of tell from the statements that have come out about it that things were not going to go great. People broke through barriers, broke in past security. And so as the concert began and the day began, they were way over capacity. There was thousands and thousands and thousands of people there, people who didn't pay, people who paid a lot. It was just a big mix of people, lots of famous people involved coming to see this music festival, all of that. Long story short, once Travis Scott took the stage around 9 p.m., the pit, it was just an open field. It wasn't a stadium. It wasn't an arena, anything like that. But the pit got so congested and so tight from people in anticipation, waiting all day, whatever you want to call it, to the point of people are now saying it was so tight that lips were blue, you couldn't breathe, you were suffocating, you'd put your hand up to cheer, you couldn't put it back down, all of these types of things. And then what happened was because of the immense pressure of the people pushing from the back. It was kind of, they call it a crowd surge. It's happened before, but not to this level.
Right.
But everybody kind of fell forward, hit the barriers in the front, fell backwards, knocked people over. And then what happened, and it happened so quick and so drastically that people didn't even notice. But now there was layers of people under people who were standing, and there was literal human sinkholes happening in the midst of this pit because of the continuous pressure of how big this crowd was and just the energy and the excitement of the crowd. Long story short, 8 people are dead.
Yeah.
Multiple people are on critical life support at this point, and hundreds have come forward with brain injuries and damage and all of those types of things. The youngest that I've heard of is a 9-year-old boy who was there with his dad, and he got trampled by the crowd when this started to happen, and the dad lifted him up, and you could just see this bloody little boy, and he was trying to get him to safety, and he is on life support right now. The youngest death is 14 years old, and this is now being called the greatest concert tragedy in history. So what are your thoughts on something like this?
Yeah, I saw the pictures on the news of the 8 that have been confirmed dead, and tragedy is a good word to describe it. Obviously, I mean, the first thought is complete security failure.
Yeah.
Whatever they had set up for that was way under capacity in terms of security, so they didn't plan for this. He has a track record of having issues at concerts like this, but nothing to this level.
Yeah.
It's appalling that parents would take their young kids to that concert, just knowing enough about him and this music. It's not a good place for kids. But, you know, after coming off of COVID, it's like everybody's pent up with this desire to get back to normal and go to concerts. So I don't know if that had anything to do with the surge.
Yeah,
maybe. I don't know. But yeah, it's a continuing story in the news. I mean, the parts that I heard about that he just kept on playing and playing, and there was an ambulance picking up a dead body in the middle of the pit in front of him, and he told everybody to flip off the emergency people.
Yeah.
I mean, just unbelievable stuff. And of course, now he's probably saying he didn't know how bad it was, and he's refunding everybody's tickets
And paying for funerals.
Oh,
That's another thing that's come forward today.
Oh, well, that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like
Yeah.
I have no real patience for that. Just understanding that it could have been stopped some way, could have been
Somehow,
prevented.
yeah.
Because we were talking the other day about this, and we know many of the times we've seen concerts where there's been something bad going on, and big name artists have just stopped in the middle of it. I mean, it's not something you have to continue to do. Lives matter. So I don't know. It's just, I don't know what else to say. It's tragedy.
Yeah, it is. And now there's all those mixed reviews of did he know, did he not know? There's pretty, hard videos to watch that have come out of people in front, second row screaming at him, screaming bloody murder to stop the show. People are dying. And, but, do we know as a matter of fact that he knew? I don't know. And now there's reports of he left the concert, went to Dave & Buster's,
Went
right?
to a party. I heard it. After
because they
party.
had an after
Yes.
party, showed up ready to go, and they were like, "Do you not know what's going on?" And he was like, "Oh, what?" And so, is that true? Is that not true?
I don't
we
know.
don't know. But it is either way, like you said, it's a tragedy.
Yeah.
It's,
I mean, there's got to be a lot of people held accountable for this.
Yeah.
Tons of lawsuits are coming, but
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't bring people back to life.
no, it doesn't.
So.
But yeah, I've been watching
Yeah,
some
it's
of
been
the
in the news a
testimony
lot,
videos of people who were there, and it just sounds horrific. It just sounds very scary.
It is, yeah.
People
I mean,
are calling it a day in hell, is what I keep reading.
Yeah, I mean, and then just the claustrophobic feelings.
Yeah.
I
can't imagine.
No, I mean, I've been close to people in concerts and other places, and I can handle it a little bit, but that just sounds unbelievable.
Lots of conspiracy theorists have come out, of course, about it. All of their advertising and his advertising leading up to it is very demonic and very satanic and very a lot about people dying, honestly. And so there's lots of things of conspiracy theories that he kind of wanted something like this to happen. Do we know that for sure?
I mean, no,
Obviously not.
I can't make those accusations, but there's
Yeah.
something that's very strange about it because, with all the technology there is today and the in-ear monitors and
Yeah.
all the ways that they can get messages to him, his crew, it's almost like they just did it anyway, didn't care. That's
right.
what it comes across as. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Going along with the theme of our show, how can God be seen in something as tragic, horrible, horrific, horrendous as this?
Whew.
It's a
In
tough
all
one.
things, God works together for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. How, there's so much that is negative about that event. There's so much going on there that's just wrong. And, you know, in the end, it's now the recovery period. And what can people do? What can people who are believers in Jesus do to minister to those people that are hurting? I mean, there's the funerals, there's times for people to hurt, and God can, in tragedy, we've seen that all the time, how God can work in tragedy and bring people to him. But, you know, people act in sinful ways. People act out of control, and sometimes things happen that are just awful. It's not like God wanted that to happen, but gives us a free will, and people act, and then there's repercussions.
Yeah, I think a misconception that could be had with a show like this and calling it In All Things is people can think, so you think that God planned that tragedy to happen so that glory would be brought to him? Well, no, not necessarily, right?
No, of course not. He didn't.
No, he didn't, but that doesn't mean he can't somehow be seen in the midst of what's to come now that it's over, right?
Right.
And we don't know what's going to happen. This is very real. It happened a couple days ago.
Well,
you know?
yeah, right. By the time people are listening to this, it's been 2 more weeks, so there's a lot more that'll probably have come out.
Yeah. But right now it's November 10th, so it was this past weekend. So there's it's very fresh. There's lots of things that are going to come out of it. But either way, it's horrible, and it's something
the more
that
you
a lot
read
of people
and the more you hear
about
it, the more sickening it is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
In a lighter conversation.
That sounds good.
Another big thing happening in our world is the rebranding of Facebook.
Yes.
And all of the apps that they own, Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, a couple other big ones.
Yes.
And some big ones coming out, all owned by Facebook, which is now called Meta.
Meta, right.
Have you heard about
Facebook will
this?
still have its name.
Yeah.
As
The
Facebook,
apps,
but
yes.
the parent company is going to be Meta, yes.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg is still in charge.
Yes.
He's an interesting dude. I don't know if you know much about him.
I did watch that movie.
The Social Network?
Yes.
That's a great movie.
It really opened my eyes up a lot.
But he's just interesting. Like
He is.
some of his, he's just kind of quirky, but he's a genius. He's very, very smart.
He's rich.
He is rich. But so that the company that owns all of those apps is now changing to Meta, which I don't think is really anything more than just kind of their new phase of branding.
Rebranding, and I
like
think,
that.
you know, so that it's obvious then there's one company that owns multiple rather than Facebook owns this. Yeah,
right.
I get it.
But have you heard about the Metaverse?
I've heard. I don't know.
What have you heard about it?
I really school
So
me.
this is kind of like their future idea for what's to come with social media and technology. So just yet again, you can read about it, watch about it. There's lots out there. People are talking about it. It's probably not going to happen super soon, but it is their goal for the future. They're in the process of creating the Metaverse, which is essentially you'll have a pair of glasses. I know this has been talked about for a long time, but they're actually doing it. You'll have a pair of glasses and you'll be able to, they look very normal, very like it would be like your normal glasses.
Okay.
But you can play video games in a virtual reality world. You can work, you can social network, you can do all of these things, but it's going to be almost like, if we're being honest, a virtual reality world.
Okay.
That's what they're attempting to create. Some of the promos that they've put out of what it's going to look like if they do it right is pretty interesting. I wonder how much is going to come to fruition, because they have ads of people, you know, like you and me. Let's say I'm working from home one day.
Okay.
I put on my glasses and I'd be sitting there and I'd type in the air like this on my keyboard and send you something, and you'd say, oh, you want to hop in a meeting with me? I'd say, yeah. And then you'd be sitting right in front of me, but I would actually be at home. And so
virtually, you'd see me. It would be like you'd see me right there,
right?
Like we are right now.
Yep.
Okay.
So there's that kind of stuff. There's like in the world of gaming, like you could do a 3v3 basketball tournament with people all over the globe, and you're actually working out, shooting, having the ball, all this stuff, but you're in your living room. So it's kind of crazy. Like,
you know, every I don't know, every few years, it's like we think, what else could be discovered? What new invention could there be? Because when I think back to when I was a kid, I would have never believed what we have now.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I think what's left? And yet there's more.
There's more. And I think if there's a company that could pull off something as massive as this, it's probably going to be the Meta, the Facebook people that have all the money, right?
Right.
But it is, I think, something worth talking about. Let's say that the Metaverse does happen and there's this new virtual reality world that you can live in. What are some pros and cons that come with technology developing to that point? Because I think, like you just said, we never would have imagined that technology would be here. And it kind of seems like, okay, where else can they really go with this? iPhone comes out with the same iPhone every year, so where else are they going to?
Right.
But they're finding new things and new ways to do technology and social media, and their whole ploy and marketing scheme for this metaverse is that it's actually going to connect more people than it is. Because the big fear is, oh, well, we're just going to be separated all the time then because everything's virtual. And their big thing is, no, actually, you're going to be more connected because of how real it's going to be.
Right.
So I don't know. I really don't know.
It sounds like maybe just making things simpler that we already do. I mean, like we FaceTime. We have Zoom meetings. We have all those things. So we can have them without having to have another device.
Right.
So some of it's taking away the extra steps to get there. What else could you do? I mean, I don't know how else can.
If you
I can look at you right here,
crazy.
but if you're not with me, I can hold my phone and
right.
but if I could just wear glasses and do it, I guess that's a little bit of an advantage. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think in the world of gaming and that kind of stuff, they're trying to develop a literal world that doesn't exist in our world. And for me, initially, it's cool. It sounds like something out of a movie. Have you ever seen or heard of the movie Ready Player One? It sounds just like that.
Right.
And that's kind of what they're going for. But I think that there could be a lot of negative to it as well, because I think the negative side of it is you're taking people even more so out of face-to-face. You're taking people even more so out of the real world. So I don't know. I think it's dangerous.
I'm not a gamer, but like my son plays, and when he's playing a game with somebody online, he also has his phone set up.
Right.
So they're FaceTiming at the same time as they're playing each other. So I guess somewhere there's a connection there too.
Yeah, I don't know. There's all kind of things. You got to watch and read about it. It's crazy. Like you can build your own house, and then that represents everything that you are in the metaverse, and you go there and hang out with people, and it's
like a second world that you're living in.
That's what they're trying to do. So
yeah, I remember Dwight did that on The Office. He had like, what did he call it?
I don't remember the name for it.
That episode?
Remember the name for it?
Are you guys listening over there? Okay,
No.
all right. Just kidding.
But yeah, I briefly remember that episode of The Office. But it's going to be real.
Yeah.
So Dwight is he's pulling it off, I guess.
Years ago.
Yeah.
He's
but that's all great.
Yeah.
Technology's awesome.
Yeah,
and I think that if the metaverse ever does come out, cool. I think it could have some awesome things to it. But I think there is a dangerous side to it as well, like I said. And so let's shift gears completely, okay? Because in a world that's continuing to speed up, in a world that's continuing to provide more and more ways out of the real world, if we're being honest, especially something like the metaverse, as cool and forward-thinking as it is, it also is removing us from real things, real people, real conversations, real relationships, which I think is a very big danger. And so you and I know you finished it last night. There's a very famous book out right now called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Very popular. By
John Mark Comer, he used to be a pastor in Portland, Oregon, but he is no longer a pastor. He's just more of an author and writer and those kinds of things. And he wrote a whole book looking at essentially the spiritual discipline of Sabbath, right? How would you sum that book up to people?
I mean, Sabbath, I think, is a big part of it. I think it's all about obviously eliminating hurry, so it's slowing down. And so, he had, I guess he took half the book to build his case, and then he gave 4 different particular areas that we should experience. And Sabbath was one of the 4.
Yep.
And the word Sabbath means stop. It literally means stop. And so he brought out some things about time that I never really thought about, and about the lack of sleep that we get, the lack of rest, all those things. I mean, really great ideas. And I highly recommend the book. Also with the understanding of everybody's living in their own unique world. And so he has been able to do some things in his own life. And we can't just make excuses and say we can't do them, but there's things that are just unique to him. And so, you read a book like that, you're like, oh man, I can't do all that. Well, you can't. Nobody can. He can, because he wrote it, and I think he's living it out. Some of it I'm like, really? Are you really doing that?
Right.
But there was a ton of things that stood out to me in that. But I think the whole idea of it is really interesting. Yeah. And just his the way he built the first several chapters talking about time and how we view time and how God views time and how time was back in the garden up through when we actually got electricity and had lights at night, and how different it was, because when it got dark, what did people do? They went to sleep. And then when it got light, they woke up. So they slept like a lot more than we did. They got more sleep. So it's just a whole different ballgame that we live in.
One thing I love about his approach to that conversation is he's very logical, and he's very good at providing facts and data for all of the things about how our generation and the world has just kind of sped up as a whole.
Right.
But his book, and kind of taking this stance of how we need to actually eliminate hurry and things like that in our life, has kind of spurred a big conversation in the church. Craig Groeschel did, I don't know the name of the series, but he did it basically an entire series recently based on this idea. He referenced Comer a lot, and just lots of people are starting to have this conversation and figure out how real is this? How relevant is this? Is this necessary? This whole idea of slowing down and turning off and all these things. So as we get ready to wrap up this season and take a month and a half off really from doing a routine like this, I thought it'd be fun to talk about how real we think that is and how relevant we think that idea is of slowing down, disconnecting, all of those different types of things. There's a podcast and a church that you and I listen to and reference sometimes it's called Battle Ready, but it's based out of Mosaic Church in LA, California. The pastor's name is Erwin McManus. They did an episode last week. Actually, this book is, I think, almost 2 years old. Okay. But they did an episode last week just now talking about the ruthless elimination of hurry. And I didn't really agree with their approach. I don't know if you listened to this episode.
I did not hear that one, no.
But right off the bat, they introduced this book and what it's all about, blah, blah, blah. And they say, yeah, I think that's a really great thing to add to the table, but we're busy, so it's not really relevant. That's really the approach that they take.
I hear. I want to listen to their take on it because I really enjoy their podcast. And I told you the other day I was driving on our down the road, had 97.1 on here locally, sports talk radio, and the beginning of 9 o'clock hour, James Laurinaitis was on there. He's a regular on there, and he was just saying that he just arrived in New Jersey to call a game on Saturday. And he said, man, it has been crazy since I've got here. He said, I'm not living according to my new favorite book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I thought, wow. Yeah. So he's reading it. It's getting out there. A lot of people, because people know that there's something not right about the pace. He goes extreme in the book.
He does.
And I think that's probably what Erwin's saying in his podcast. I mean, like, there's some good stuff there. And I think, you know, like I mentioned to my wife, I said, you'd read this. She goes, I'll probably get frustrated because I can't do all these things. I said, yeah, if you think of it that way. But if you glean from it what you can apply to your life, I think that can be the good thing.
Yeah.
Because it's very challenging. I mean, the whole connecting it to our previous conversation, connecting it to the whole technology advancement conversation, I think, like, he's not anti-technology, but he is, I mean,
pretty close.
Yeah. You know, like we all say, like, let's put our phones away at night. You know, before we go to bed, let's not look at them. You know, I have, you know, we talked about this before, putting them on Do Not Disturb I do from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. But he's like, our whole family puts our phones in a basket at 5 o'clock in the, you know, before dinner. And they don't pick them up till 9 the next day or something like that. And I'm like, what if there's an emergency? I mean, you know, there's a lot of questions I have. There's a lot of things. It was just so many things he says that are extreme. And maybe that's how he's living. I'm not going to doubt it, but not very few can do that.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it's still, I don't agree with the approach from the other extreme of, well, Jesus lived that way, but we're busy in the 21st century, so I don't know if I need to practice these things. Because that's the approach. I want you to listen to that episode because
I do
the approach that they take is very much like, yeah, that's a nice idea, but it's never going to work, so I'm not going to do any of it. And I don't agree with that side either.
Yeah, because the truth is, would Jesus be the exact same if he was here now today? Are you saying, I mean, he's not going to walk, he's going to use transportation that is available.
Yeah.
So we're saying, well, Jesus was very, you know, slow, walk through the crowds. Well, okay, but that's their mode of transportation back then. I, you know, how did, you know, Jesus dress? Well, I mean, he dressed the way they did then. You know, there was something in the book about, you know, he was saying, be simple. One of his big points is simplicity. And he wasn't, I want to say being a minimalist, but the idea of, like, we have way too much in our closets. So let's just go get rid of a bunch of clothes, and we shouldn't have so many. And he says he has three outfits for each season. I'm like, are you kidding me? He wears like a gray sweatshirt every 3 days a week, you know.
Well, like you said, he's kind of the extremist. He's the leading voice of this approach to life. And I think his conversation to simplicity, yes, for him it's clothes, but for us I think it's bigger than that. It's kind of all of the possessions that we have. We could simplify a lot.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think that's kind of the bigger, but yet again,
convicting.
Glean what you can from
the
points he's
making. It's
convicting,
you know, about purchasing and the purchases that we make, and if we didn't make them, how much we could do with that money for other people. And there's so much conviction there. I mean, absolutely. But this is 2021, so I'm probably going to fall somewhere in between what Erwin said and what he is saying,
Sure.
because there's just, and then what realistic things can we do to slow down?
Right. And that live podcast episodes that we did 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago at this point, I don't know, here at Sycamore, we collected questions for 2 weeks straight, and I got multiple questions about this idea of Sabbath. And so that's even more so why I wanted to have a conversation like this today. So I have 4 words, and I just want to kind of come together and give our approaches to each of these things. I have rest, disconnecting, quiet time, and Sabbath. So I want to talk about these 4 things. We'll go one by one and just talk about maybe some of our personal ways that we approach each of these different things. They're not exactly what John Mark Comer says. We're not ripping off his book or anything, but it definitely started us kind of thinking and talking about these things. So with the first one of rest, how do you feel like you rest personally? Very personal. What do you feel like? What things recharge you? What things kind of make you feel rested? What do you think?
Sleep.
Well, yeah.
Obviously, I don't think that was the answer you're going for.
How many hours do you sleep a night?
Depends on the night. That's a tough question. I want to say 7.
Okay.
On a good night, and not more than that typically. I think as I've gotten older, it's like my body won't let me sleep longer than that. So about 7 on a good night. And then, taking some somewhat natural type of things to help with sleep. That's something I do, because when you don't have a restful night of sleep, the next day is miserable. But rest, what else? Relaxing at home, watching a show with my wife, having a day off every week, try not to do too much, not fill it with activities that are not fun. No, I think doing fun things can be restful for your soul. And so I don't know. I don't know that there's anything dramatic to say about rest. Vacations are important. Family vacation.
Yeah, those are like the big rest moments.
Yes, like having those I think are so important. I think the people that don't get away and do those, or you only go away for 1 day or 2. I always hear people saying, a week isn't enough. Well, in the real world, it's hard to, not many people can take a 2 or 3 week vacation. But what about you?
Especially this time of year, walking outside. I love walking outside in the fall. But yeah, sleep, obviously, watching TV, movies, that kind of stuff, just very restful to me. Playing games with people, friends, family. I love that. That really recharges me. So yeah, I would say those kind of things, make me feel rested.
Right.
What about disconnecting from the world? So I think kind of my thought of having this type of word in there is more about literally stepping away from maybe technology, social media, that kind of stuff. Do you have any practice in your life or anything that you do that
besides what I just mentioned, I from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., that's not good enough though.
Yeah.
I feel convicted about this one. When I read this part in his book, when he talked about it, I felt convicted because I know that I am somewhat addicted to my phone. He said to get rid of email from your phone. Okay. He said get rid of all your social media from your phone. Only look at it on your computer.
On the internet browser,
On your internet browser. And he said do it at like once a day.
Yeah, there's people I know that do that.
I know.
That have that discipline.
They have, and then he even said, as far as like checking messages, check them at 9 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. I'm something crazy. I'm like, okay, but who does that? I mean, like, so I like some of those ideas. I feel, I don't know. It's hard to be disconnected from our phones. Like it is. And I think that's a problem. Not sure exactly how to grow. We for dinner, we put them aside, unless we're like in a situation where we're waiting for an important call or something, when we're having a family dinner, or we're at a restaurant talking, put them over here, turn them over. Let's have conversation. So that's important.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, more of the disconnection will come when we talk about Sabbath in a moment. But one thing that I just kind of have to keep on myself about is once I go home, I try not to open my work email at all, do anything like that. Right. So that's one thing that just for me personally, I try to do. Right. Like I have plenty of time in the office to handle the amount of emails that I receive. So I try to, disregard a lot of that stuff when I'm at home and just be home. Right. And so in terms of disconnection, besides what I'll share in a moment, that's typically what I do, is just kind of like, okay, I'm going to disconnect literally from work that, especially ministry, can very easily follow you home. And so I try not to do that too much. But
I think too, we need to, and we're talking as pastors, but I think too, everybody's life's different. Some people's jobs require them to have their work email on there, and they have to check it, and they have to be available. So
for them, maybe disconnection looks different.
It does. It's not the same for each.
Right. So what about quiet time? what do you have in place as a quiet time, or what does he call it in the book? What does he call it?
Solitude and
Solitude. Yeah. So
silence.
what do you have in place for that?
I mean, for me, like we talked about, I mean, I think it's more than like just a devotional time. I think sometimes we equate the two, which they can be in the same arena. I mean, but I liked how he talked about this of having a time where you're just quiet and you're not reading, you're just listening, just meditating, just thinking. We don't have thinking space in our lives. And so I like that. And sometimes a jog is really good for that. It's, and maybe I do have some worship music playing in my ears, but really just time my mind goes all different kinds of places. And I really like that. You can really hear God again. Sometimes just like even in the office, and I know some of us do this, we'll go with our iPads or laptops to a different part of the building just to get out of the office. And just sometimes I'm just sitting somewhere else being quiet. And quiet time can mean that because there's so much noise. There's constantly in front of a computer, in front of a phone, there's just constant. And so I think those are some things. I feel like I need more of that, just more downtime to not be thinking, not be processing, not be watching another show or anything like that.
Yeah. This is a big struggle for me because I'm always going from one thing to one thing to one thing, and it might be really good things, but I'm always filling my mind and my ears with something. There's always a book to read, a podcast to listen to, something to do. Yes. And it's also my personality type, but I'm just always doing something, searching for something. And sometimes I'm just like, wait, when's the last time that I've just done nothing? I'm like, I don't know. So
yeah, I know
that's a big struggle for me.
Does that mean like not even having conversation with any other person, being by yourself? Is that what it means to you?
I think so. Yeah. When he talks about this idea of silence and solitude, I feel like that's your kind of carved out time of just literally disconnection, just you and God, and just kind of even quieting your own thoughts and just listening.
Right.
I feel like that's one thing that's it's so hard for us to do.
It is. It is.
I struggle with it big time.
True confession. I was talking about you the other day with Devi, and I said, how in the world does he watch as many shows and listen to many podcasts and read as many books? And I mean, it's just listens to his new music. And I said, I don't know how he does it.
It's all the time.
And he sleeps. You sleep too.
I sleep good.
It's amazing. I was like, wow. Because it's impressive, but it's not all something to be proud of.
No, sometimes it's too much. And sometimes I have to literally step away and be like, okay, I have to be quiet because my mind just doesn't let me.
Well, I think too, we can become overly informed and we don't even have enough time to think through what we're learning.
Process, yeah.
How we okay, we can listen and read and do so much, but then are we processing it and applying it to our lives in a way that's practical, that's helpful? So I think that's what thinking space can do for me. It's let me just think. Sometimes even in that quiet time thinking space, I like to have a pad of paper or my Moleskine or whatever to write in random thoughts God gives me. Sometimes it's a new sermon idea. Sometimes it's just a random thought that never becomes anything. But it's interesting to go back and look at those sometimes. Think, okay, what was I thinking? Because I haven't been able to think.
Right.
Sometimes I just feel like I can't think because you just have all this pressure and you got to, every week there's stuff you got to get done. And then thinking space.
Yeah. Earlier this year, we did a series at the Well. It's probably one of my favorites that we've done called A Quiet Place. And we talked about, all the scripture that talks about Jesus withdrawing to a quiet place to be alone and talk to God. And for the 3 weeks we did that series, we had a challenge of every day throughout the week have 5 minutes of silence. And the leaders, students, me included, we all tried it. And man, it was awesome. And now I'm in this moment of I haven't done that in months. Why don't I do that? I'm just always filling myself up with something new.
What's the first thing you do when you get in your car?
I turn on a podcast music.
Right.
Yeah. First thing.
Yeah. Right. And if we just took if we had 10-minute drives to work or whatever, what if we're just quiet? I've done that a few times by accident because I had so much on my mind and it's I didn't even turn the radio on.
Yeah.
Whoa. And that was, that was actually
what
relieving. I needed to do.
Yeah.
It feels good.
So last kind of big word I have here is Sabbath, which is a big one. But let's talk about it for a moment. You've been in ministry a lot longer than I have. What has kind of been the approach to Sabbath from maybe years or different church traditions, contexts you've been in? How have you seen the Sabbath kind of play out?
Yeah, it does play out differently for pastors because it's Sunday's a work day for the most part. I mean, you're worshiping, but you're on duty. And so that doesn't work as a Sabbath day because Sabbath means rest and stop doing what you're doing. And So I think for me and for you and for anybody in ministry, usually you have another day off during the week, like a Monday or a Friday. Most churches give their staff off. We're off on Friday here. So that's nice. Get all your work done and then have off Friday. So Friday, and try to keep that day set apart to relax and do things that I want to do, but it doesn't always happen. But I try to at least half the day, at least part of the day, because if I fill it up with just other things, then I don't feel like I've recovered, unless those things are life-giving, unless those things are fun and things I want to do.
Right.
So
the big misconception that a lot of people have on the Sabbath is that it's a day where you're supposed to lock yourself in a closet and read your Bible, and that's it, right? Like there's kind of this misconception that it's just like, oh, I can't do anything today because it's Sabbath, right? And it's kind of, that's not exactly true. It's more of this idea of a day of worship and prayer and things that fill you up. That's kind of the point of the Sabbath, right? And so that kind of misconception makes it a little bit more interesting, because then it's like, oh, wait, reading a book I really like, or going for that walk or that jog, or spending time with those people I love, that's life-giving, that's restful, that's, so it kind of challenges the way that, I mean, I remember, I'm only 22, but growing up hearing the 10 Commandments, the Sabbath's in there, right? And hearing these different things and being like, what is that? Like, I don't think we practice that anymore. I don't think that's really a thing, But the more that you get into it and realize what it's supposed to be, it's kind of interesting.
I mean, God started it before the 10 Commandments, right? With the 7 days of creation. On the seventh day, he rested.
He didn't rest because he got tired.
Yeah, he was really tired. It was a lot of work. So, yeah, we've heard that joke before, haven't we? We've all said it. But the truth is, I mean, that is an example for us, and then he commanded us to remember it. So I think that we don't necessarily do a good job of that. It's hard. Those that are not in ministry, that are, most of the world, they can go to church and worship on Sunday and use that day as a day of rest and worship. I think it used to be, like growing up, it's like that was the day you could go to grandma's house for a family dinner and hang out with family, and just relax. And it was a good day. But a lot of things have changed in our world. Travel sports, people have weekend tournaments all the time. It's hard to find that time for Sabbath. So I think you carve it out. Like one of the things, I think you think about the Hebrew Sabbath would begin in the evening and go to with dinner Friday night all the way through Saturday dinner. So a little bit, maybe that works in a different way. You could, that's what you do, kind of try to.
So that's actually what I was kind of saving, because for the last 2 weeks, so I've only been doing this for 2 weeks.
Okay.
But my goal is to do it for the rest of the year, and just see how I feel about it. And so what I've been doing 2 weeks starts Friday night at dinner. So
Friday night.
Yep.
Okay.
And it goes through Saturday early afternoon to evening.
Okay.
And so it's basically 24 hours. And so what it looks like for me is on Friday, which is our day off, I will do all of the chores around the house, everything that needs to be done. So that Lexi, when she gets home from work, because she works on Friday because she has a normal job, when she gets home from work, those things are done. So I make it easier for her to rest with me. But then what I do is 5 o'clock, I have a preset do not disturb thing that goes on my phone at 5 o'clock. It's scheduled, and only certain people, the notifications come through. All social media notifications, email notifications, all of that is blocked. And I try to basically only use my phone for communication, only use my phone for making plans, for that kind of stuff. Besides that, I'm not on my phone at all. And so
from Friday at 5?
Yep, until Saturday evening.
5.
So I don't charge my phone that night. I don't have to do anything because I don't need it. Okay. And so for those 24 hours, I read, I watch TV, I go for walks, I go to the gym sometimes, I hang out, we make plans with people that are life-giving to us. We do all of those things for that. It's pretty short amount of time compared to the rest of the time in a week. But I've done it for 2 weeks now, and it's pretty awesome. Wow, I got to admit.
The three of us in this room want to know if we're one of the numbers that gets through.
Yes, I think you all are, actually.
Okay,
so
that's really important. But no, that's awesome. Yeah, I think, and from week to week that will work, and some weeks it won't, obviously, but different things going on in life. But yeah, that's cool.
But it's been pretty cool so far, and it's just something that personally I wanted to be challenged by, so I've tried to start doing. But starting it with a big meal on Friday night is pretty cool. Yeah, because it's like that's a really easy way to be thankful and think about how lucky we are to be in America and all the things, and then going to sleep early, sleeping in, no alarms, getting up on Saturday, like it's awesome. So
yeah, that's great. I like it.
And then come Saturday, when that 24 24-hour period is up, it's like, okay, let's get ready for Sunday morning. Is there
Right.
anything around the house that needs done? That kind of stuff.
Right.
But yeah.
That's
So
good.
that's
Yeah, I
kinda
like
where
that.
I'm at.
Yeah,
But-
that's good. I mean, it'll evolve different times of your life and have
Yeah.
kids one day and whatever they're involved in.
Mhm.
Because Saturday will be a big day for, sports and
Yep.
whatever family activities. But that can be life-giving. That can be fun. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean that it's not Sabbath.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So we've talked a lot of our personal
Yeah.
back and forth here and our different takes on this idea of slowing down and resting and all of that. So what would you say to people listening, people who don't have ministry jobs, people who but are still living in the same world as us with technology and fast pace and burnout and all of those different types of things? What's something they can take away from this conversation that we just had? What do you think?
Yeah, I think figure out some way to observe some sort of Sabbath every week. It may not be 24 hours straight. Maybe there's just, you look at your schedule and there's not, but work at it. Make it a priority to figure something out. And, include, maybe it's, Saturday night through Sunday morning through the afternoon, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to church on Sunday morning, but on Saturday night, we're going to put our phones away. We're going to disconnect. We're going to be a family if you're a family, whoever's listening. And we're going to do that until, the middle of the afternoon on Sunday. Figure that out.
Right.
The holidays are coming up. So disengage from people you don't need to be engaged with and engage with the people that are in your life that are most important, your family, your friends, whoever you're with. Like, be fully present. If you're a game playing family like we are, enjoy that and don't be checking your phone and seeing what everybody else is doing on social media during that time. I know a lot of people that have done that very thing of taking Instagram off their phone for a while, taking a break from that. Maybe that's what you should do. You don't need to see what everybody's decorations look like.
Right.
I mean, you can go online and do that. You can go on your computer, and do that. But there's just different things that you can do. But be honest about it. Be honest with yourself. Be honest about how much time you're wasting and how much in a hurried pace you are. And you're not. I think just stepping back and enjoying life at a slower pace is a good thing, and we can make ourselves do that. It's just some funny things that we were just talking before about some of the things in the book. We don't agree with every example that he has, but like the funny things about slowing down, like get in the line at the store that's the longest line, and don't be on your phone. Talk to people and see what happens.
Right.
Like sometimes I found myself when I do that and I talk to the cashier and ask them about their life and how their day is. I know I felt like my kids cringe, but actually people appreciate like being talked to like a human being.
Yeah.
Those type of things driving the speed limit. I'm like, wow, that's different.
Whoa.
You don't go under because you'll make people mad. You'll make people mad if you go the speed limit these days. But still, like just slowing down, leaving the radio off a little bit. I mean, there's so many things we've talked about that we do, but I think go back to biblical. It's like God said. It's weird, isn't it? When you think about the Ten Commandments, you think about what they're all about, and they're about the first four about not having any other gods, and then there's, about not, how we obey our parents, and then there's all about not how we treat each other in terms of not killing one another, not stealing, not lying, all these things that are like things that we shouldn't do. But then there's this one that we need to do: observe the Sabbath. And I think that we maybe really mess that one up. And so I think it's a weekly thing, but it's also like this time of the year, maybe you have more opportunity to try it more. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, when Jesus said that, what does he say? Man wasn't made for Sabbath, but Sabbath was made for man, right? John Mark Comer kind of calls it a weekly holiday. It's kind of like, if you look at it that way, as one day to step away and recharge and do the things that you and your family, you and your spouse care about and gives you life. Like, these last 2 weeks that we've tried it, man, our Saturdays and Sundays have been so much more full of energy and joy because we have taken that time to really recharge. So, I think it looks different for everybody, right? The things that I don't do on that Friday, Saturday are different than even my wife Lexi does on that Friday or Saturday, because she's like, oh, I want to do these things. Okay, great. But find what works for you and find a real way to just take a step back and breathe. I think it does a lot.
Yeah.
So
I think sometimes we think we're holding up the world by everything that we do and everything we have to respond to, and not just us. I mean, everybody in general. And like everybody's going to be okay. And like you said, let the people that need to get through on your phone, but otherwise, don't answer everything. You don't have to.
Right. He's even had the example before of like, don't fight. Don't argue. Because you got 6 other days for that. Just have one day to just try your best to live in peace and just So I like that example.
Yeah, I like that too.
So, but anyway, I think that's all I have. Do you have any closing thoughts on this idea of slowing down? Are you good?
No, get the book. Read the book.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
This is actually a sponsored ad.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah. It seems like it.
But man, this is a wrap on season 1 of the In All Things podcast.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to everybody that's listened and watched
And shared it.
And I know you got a routine in your week, and you get that email. If you're in the church email system, you get a email every Wednesday, and we just hope that we're hitting on some things that really speak to you, and we want to encourage you in the middle of the week. So we look forward to being back, and thank you for all your ideas and the cards you turned in. So we're going to really work on making this something that is applicable to your life. And so happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving. And to those of you who have taken the time to tell us how much you like this podcast, that does a lot for us, honestly, because this was something brand new that we're still kind of trying out and figuring it out. And so to hear that you guys like it and there's actual feedback that you enjoy, that does a lot. Yeah.
And I think too, we want to shout out to Jared and Devi over there, producers, and a lot of work every week, editing and
listening to our voices.
I hate listening to my own voice. I can't imagine how many times they have to listen to it. So we appreciate them. And anyway, thank you.
Well, that's it. This is a wrap. So we'll see you at the beginning of 2022. We got some exciting things planned for next year. So this is the end of season 1 of the In All Things podcast. See you later. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the In All Things podcast. Our challenge for you today is to send this episode to one person. Seriously, think of somebody right now that could use this conversation and send it to them. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic ideas, please send them to podcast@sycamorecreek.org, and make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sycamore Creek Church so that you can always see what's going on in our world. If this conversation helped you at all, make sure you share it, leave a review, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on a single episode. We love you, God loves you, and we'll see you next week on the In All Things podcast.